The wind howled across the Montana plains, carrying the scent of dust and wild sage, as Jamie Harper's old pickup truck rattled to a stop at the edge of Caldwell Ranch. His heart pounded, not from the long drive from Seattle, but from the weight of returning to a place he'd sworn never to set foot in again. At 25, Jamie was no stranger to rejection, but something about this call for help from his estranged uncle had pulled him back to the land of his childhood summers. The ranch sprawled before him, a patchwork of golden fields and weathered barns under a sky bruised purple by the setting sun. Jamie stepped out, his boots crunching on gravel, and adjusted the canvas bag slung over his shoulder. He wasn't here to stay, just to help Uncle Ray get the ranch back on its feet after a brutal season of drought and debt. That was the plan, anyway, until he saw him. Ethan Caldwell, the ranch's foreman, stood by the main gate, his broad shoulders squared like a wall, his Stetson tilted low over eyes that glinted with suspicion. "You're Ray's nephew?" Ethan's voice was rough, like gravel under a boot. "Didn't expect a city boy to show up." Jamie bristled, his chestnut hair catching the last rays of sunlight. "I'm here to help," he said, forcing a smile. "Not to cause trouble." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We don't need help. Especially not from someone who doesn't know a steer from a stallion." He turned away, dismissing Jamie with a flick of his gloved hand, and strode toward the barn. Jamie stood frozen, the sting of rejection familiar yet sharp. He'd faced it before, his art school classmates mocking his rural roots, his parents' quiet disappointment when he came out at 17. But Ethan's coldness cut deeper, like a blade through canvas. The next morning, Jamie woke to the crow of a rooster and the ache of a lumpy guest room mattress. Uncle Ray, a wiry man with a face carved by years of sun and worry, greeted him with a mug of black coffee and a list of chores. "Ethan's a hard one to crack," Ray said, his eyes crinkling with a knowing smile. "But he's the best damn cowboy I got. Give him time." Time, Jamie thought, was the one thing he didn't want to give. He'd planned to stay a month, tops, fix the fences, balance the books, and get out before the ranch's ghosts dragged him under. But as he hauled hay bales and mended barbed wire under Ethan's watchful glare, Jamie felt the weight of something unspoken. Ethan was everywhere, checking cattle, repairing troughs, his movements precise yet burdened, like a man carrying a secret too heavy to share. Jamie caught glimpses of him at dusk, sitting alone on the porch, staring at the horizon as if searching for answers the stars couldn't give. One evening, after a long day of branding calves, Jamie found Ethan by the horse corral, brushing down a chestnut mare. The air was thick with the scent of leather and hay. "You're doing it wrong," Ethan snapped when Jamie offered to help. "City hands don't know how to handle a horse." Jamie's temper flared. "I'm not useless, Ethan. I grew up coming here. I know more than you think." Ethan's eyes met his, dark and unreadable. "Prove it," he said, tossing Jamie the brush. Their fingers brushed for a split second, and Jamie felt a jolt, like static in a storm. Ethan pulled away fast, his face hardening, and stalked off into the night. Days turned into weeks, and the tension between them grew taut as a stretched wire. Jamie threw himself into the work, determined to earn his place. He painted in his spare moments, capturing the ranch's raw beauty on canvas. The sweep of the plains, the silhouette of a lone cowboy against a fiery sunset. He didn't realize Ethan had seen the paintings until one night, when he found Ethan standing in the guest room, staring at a half-finished piece. "Didn't know you were an artist," Ethan said, his voice softer than usual. "It's just a hobby," Jamie lied, his heart racing. Ethan's gaze lingered, not on the canvas but on Jamie, and for a moment, the air felt charged, like the calm before a lightning strike. Then Ethan turned away, muttering something about checking the herd, and the moment shattered. One afternoon, as a storm brewed on the horizon, Jamie found Ethan repairing a fence in the far pasture. Rain began to fall, cold and relentless, but Ethan didn't stop. "Go back to the house," Ethan called over the wind. "You'll catch your death out here." "I'm not leaving you," Jamie shouted back, grabbing a hammer to help. Ethan froze, his hands still on the wire, and for the first time, Jamie saw something flicker in his eyes, something raw, unguarded, almost like fear. They worked in silence, the rain soaking through their clothes, until the fence was done. As they trudged back to the barn, Ethan's shoulder brushed against Jamie's, and neither pulled away. That night, Jamie couldn't sleep. The storm raged outside, thunder shaking the old house. He wandered to the kitchen for a glass of water and found Ethan there, sitting at the table, a whiskey bottle half empty in front of him. His Stetson was off, revealing dark hair streaked with early gray. "Can't sleep either?" Ethan asked, his voice low. Jamie sat across from him, the silence heavy. "Why do you keep pushing me away?" he asked finally, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "I'm trying to help, Ethan. I'm trying to understand." Ethan's eyes met his, and for the first time, Jamie saw the cracks in his armor. Grief, shame, something unspoken. "You don't want to understand me," Ethan said, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't want to know what I've been carrying." But Jamie did. He wanted to know everything. The kitchen was dim, lit only by a flickering bulb above the sink, casting shadows across Ethan's face as he stared into his whiskey glass. Jamie leaned forward, his heart hammering, the storm outside mirroring the turmoil within. "Tell me, Ethan," he said softly. "Whatever it is, I can handle it." Ethan's laugh was bitter, a sound that cut through the thunder. "You think you can handle it? You think you can just waltz in here with your paints and your city dreams and fix everything?" He took a swig, his hands trembling slightly. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything that matters." Jamie's chest tightened. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap between them, but Ethan's walls were higher than ever. "Then let me try," Jamie said. "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here because Ray needs us. Because this ranch needs us." Ethan's eyes flicked up, dark and searching. For a moment, Jamie thought he'd speak, but then Ethan stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "Go to bed, Jamie," he said, his voice thick. "You don't belong here." He grabbed the bottle and disappeared into the storm, leaving Jamie alone with the echo of his words. The next morning, the ranch was a mess. Fences down, a calf missing, the barn roof leaking from the storm's wrath. Jamie threw himself into the repairs, his frustration fueling every hammer swing. Ray noticed, his eyes sharp despite his frail frame. "You're pushing too hard, kid," Ray said, handing Jamie a thermos of coffee. "Ethan's not your enemy. He's just lost." "Lost how?" Jamie asked, wiping sweat from his brow. Ray hesitated, then sighed. He had someone once. A man named Cole. They were close, closer than most. But things went south, and Ethan's never been the same. Jamie's heart stuttered. "Ethan? With a man?" The revelation hit like a punch, stirring a mix of hope and confusion. He'd sensed something in Ethan's glances, the fleeting moments when their eyes met too long, but he'd chalked it up to wishful thinking. Now, it felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place. That afternoon, Jamie found Ethan in the hayloft, sorting through old tack. The air was thick with dust and the scent of aged leather. "Ray told me about Cole," Jamie said, his voice steady despite his nerves. Ethan froze, his hands gripping a bridle so tightly his knuckles whitened. "Don't," he warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't you dare bring him up." "I'm not trying to hurt you," Jamie said, stepping closer. "I just want to understand. You're not alone, Ethan. You don't have to carry this by yourself." Ethan's eyes blazed, but beneath the anger, Jamie saw pain, raw, unhealed. "You think you can fix me?" Ethan snapped. "You think you can just paint over the mess I've made of my life? Cole's gone, Jamie. He's gone because of me." The words hung heavy, and Jamie's breath caught. He wanted to ask what happened, but Ethan's expression stopped him, grief so deep it seemed to swallow the light. Instead, Jamie reached out, his hand hovering near Ethan's arm. "I'm not here to fix you," he said quietly. "I'm here to help, if you'll let me." Ethan flinched, but he didn't pull away. For a moment, they stood there, the space between them charged with unspoken words. Then Ethan turned, climbing down the ladder without a word, leaving Jamie with more questions than answers. The days that followed were a blur of work and tension. Jamie focused on the ranch, balancing the books, negotiating with suppliers, even selling one of his paintings to cover a vet bill. But his thoughts kept drifting to Ethan. He noticed the small things, the way Ethan's hands lingered when passing him a tool, the way his voice softened when he thought no one was listening. Jamie began to see the man beneath the armor, the one who loved the ranch fiercely, who sang to the horses when he thought no one heard. One evening, Jamie was sketching by the creek, the water reflecting the last light of day. Ethan appeared, his boots silent on the grass. "You're good," he said, nodding at the sketch, a portrait of the ranch at sunrise. "Better than good." Jamie smiled, his heart lifting. "Thanks. It's how I make sense of things." He hesitated, then added, "You could tell me about Cole, if you wanted." Ethan's face darkened, but he didn't walk away. He sat beside Jamie, the silence stretching until he spoke. "Cole was my best friend. More than that. We grew up together, worked this ranch side by side. But I messed it up. I was too scared to admit who I was, what we were. He left, and then Ethan's voice broke. He died. Car accident, 3 years ago. I never got to say I was sorry." Jamie's throat tightened. He wanted to say something profound, but all he managed was, "I'm sorry, Ethan." "That's heavy." Ethan nodded, staring at the creek. "I pushed him away, just like I'm pushing you. It's easier that way." He looked at Jamie then, his eyes raw with vulnerability. "But you keep coming back." Jamie's heart raced. "Because I see you," he said. "Not just the cowboy, the man." Ethan's breath hitched, and for a moment, Jamie thought he might lean closer. But then Ethan stood, muttering about checking the horses, and the moment slipped away. Jamie watched him go, a mix of hope and frustration burning in his chest. He wasn't giving up, not on the ranch, and not on Ethan. The Montana summer was fading, the days growing shorter, the air sharper with the promise of fall. Jamie felt the shift in the ranch's rhythm. Calves were weaned, hay was stacked, and the weight of Ray's declining health pressed heavier each day. But it was Ethan who consumed Jamie's thoughts, his guarded glances and fleeting moments of openness like sparks in a dry field, threatening to ignite something Jamie wasn't sure he could control. One morning, Ray called Jamie into the kitchen, his hands trembling as he poured coffee. "I'm selling the ranch," Ray said bluntly. "Can't keep up anymore. Ethan knows, but he's fighting it tooth and nail." Jamie's stomach dropped. "Sell? But this place is your life. Ethan's life." Ray's eyes softened. "It's Ethan's heart I'm worried about. He's tied to this land, but it's killing him, holding on to ghosts. You've been good for him, Jamie. Don't think I haven't noticed." Jamie flushed, unsure how to respond. He'd been trying to break through Ethan's walls, but every step forward came with 2 steps back. Still, Ray's words lit a fire in him. He wasn't just fighting for the ranch now. He was fighting for Ethan, for the man he was starting to care about more than he'd admit. That afternoon, Jamie found Ethan in the barn, repairing a saddle with fierce concentration. "Ray told me about the sale," Jamie said, leaning against a stall. "You okay?" Ethan didn't look up. "It's not your business, city boy." "It is my business," Jamie shot back, his patience fraying. "I've been here, working my ass off, trying to save this place. And trying to reach you. Why do you keep shutting me out?" Ethan's hands stilled, his jaw tight. "Because you'll leave," he said finally, his voice raw. "Everyone does. Cole did. Ray's giving up. And you'll go back to your city life, your art, your freedom. I'm just a cowboy, Jamie. I'm not worth staying for." The words hit Jamie like a blow. He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of green in Ethan's eyes, the pain etched into every line of his face. "You're wrong." Jamie said, his voice steady. You're worth more than you know, and I'm not leaving until you see that. Ethan's breath caught, and for a moment, Jamie thought he might say something, might let the walls fall. But then Ethan turned away, his shoulders rigid, and Jamie felt the familiar sting of rejection. He left the barn, his heart heavy, but more determined than ever. The next week was a whirlwind. Jamie dove into the ranch's finances, finding ways to cut costs, negotiating with buyers to keep the herd intact. He painted late into the night, his canvases filled with images of Ethan, the curve of his jaw, the way his hands gripped a lasso, the quiet strength in his silhouette. Each stroke felt like a confession, a way to hold on to the man who kept slipping through his fingers. One evening, a buyer came to the ranch, a slick man from Billings with a briefcase and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Ethan was furious, his voice low and dangerous as he argued with Ray in the kitchen. You're throwing away everything we've built, Ethan shouted, his fists slamming the table. Ray's voice was calm but firm. I'm dying, Ethan. I don't have a choice. You can't carry this place alone. Jamie stood in the doorway, his heart aching for both men. He wanted to say something, to fight for the ranch, but Ethan's glare stopped him. This isn't your fight, Ethan said, brushing past him. But Jamie wasn't done. That night, he found Ethan by the creek, the same spot where they'd talked about coal. The moon hung low, casting silver light across the water. You don't have to lose this place, Jamie said, sitting beside him. I've been running the numbers. We can make it work, cut costs, sell some land, keep the core of the ranch. Ethan's laugh was hollow. You think it's that easy? This place is cursed, Jamie. It takes everything, your heart, your soul, your future. Then let me help carry it, Jamie said, his voice breaking. I'm not Cole. I'm not leaving you. Ethan looked at him, his eyes searching, and for the first time, Jamie saw a crack in the armor, a flicker of hope, of need. Ethan's hand reached out, hesitating, then rested on Jamie's shoulder. The touch was electric, grounding, and Jamie felt his breath catch. Why do you care so much? Ethan whispered. Because I see you, Jamie said again, his voice fierce. And I'm not giving up on you. Ethan's hand lingered, his thumb brushing Jamie's collarbone, and for a moment, the world was just them. The creek, the moonlight, the unspoken promise. Then Ethan pulled back, his face shuddering. I need time, he said, standing. I don't know how to do this. Jamie watched him go, his heart a tangle of hope and fear. He knew Ethan was scared, but so was he. And yet, for the first time, he felt like they were on the edge of something real. The air grew colder as September settled over the ranch, the fields fading from gold to amber. Jamie felt the clock ticking, not just for the ranch, but for whatever was growing between him and Ethan. Every glance, every fleeting touch, felt like a step towards something inevitable, yet Ethan's walls remained, fragile but unyielding. Ray's health took a turn, confining him to bed most days. Jamie took on more, working alongside Ethan to keep the ranch running. They moved in sync now, their arguments replaced by a quiet rhythm, passing tools, sharing coffee, stealing glances when they thought the other wasn't looking. But Ethan still held back, his eyes shadowed with doubt. One afternoon, Jamie was in the barn, organizing feed sacks, when he found an old photo tucked inside a crate. It was Ethan and Cole, young and laughing, their arms slung around each other under a wide Montana sky. Jamie's heart ached, for Ethan's loss, for the love he'd buried. He slipped the photo into his pocket, unsure why he couldn't let it go. That evening, a crisis hit. A coyote had gotten into the calf pen, and one of the youngest was injured. Ethan and Jamie worked late into the night, stitching the calves' wounds under the harsh light of a lantern. Their hands brushed as they passed bandages, and Jamie felt the heat of Ethan's closeness, the steady rhythm of his breathing. When the calf was stable, Ethan slumped against the stall, exhausted. "You didn't have to stay," he said, his voice soft. "I wanted to," Jamie replied, meeting his gaze. "I'm in this, Ethan. All of it." Ethan's eyes held his, and for a moment, Jamie thought he saw a spark of something new. Trust, maybe, or hope. But then Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. "You're too good for this place," he muttered. "Too good for me." Jamie's frustration boiled over. "Stop deciding what I deserve," he said, stepping closer. "I'm here because I want to be. Because I care about you, Ethan. Why can't you see that?" Ethan's breath hitched, his eyes wide with something like fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, he turned and left, the barn door slamming behind him. Jamie stood there, his heart pounding, the photo in his pocket feeling heavier than ever. The next day, Jamie confronted Ray. "I found a picture of Ethan and Cole," he said, setting it on the kitchen table. Ray's eyes softened, his fingers tracing the faded edges. "They were happy once," Ray said. "Ethan blames himself for Cole leaving. Thinks he drove him to that accident. It's why he's so scared to let anyone in." Jamie nodded, his resolve hardening. He wasn't Cole, and he wasn't leaving. That night, he found Ethan on the porch, the stars bright above them. Jamie held out the photo. "I found this," he said. "You don't have to carry him alone anymore." Ethan took the photo, his hands shaking. "I loved him," he whispered, "but I was too afraid to say it. I thought if I hid who I was, I could keep him safe. Instead, I lost him." Jamie's heart broke for him. "You're not that person anymore," he said. "You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone." Ethan's eyes met his, raw and open. "What if I hurt you too?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "You won't," Jamie said, stepping closer. "I'm not going anywhere." For a moment, they stood there, the space between them charged with possibility. Then Ethan reached out, his hand cupping Jamie's face, his thumb brushing his cheek. The touch was tentative, reverent, and Jamie leaned into it, his heart soaring. But before anything more could happen, Ethan pulled back, his face conflicted. "I can't," he said, his voice breaking. "Not yet." Jamie nodded, swallowing his disappointment. "I'll wait," he said, "as long as it takes." The days that followed were a delicate dance. Ethan was softer now, his touches lingering, his smiles rare but genuine. Jamie felt the shift, like the ranch itself was holding its breath. He painted more, his canvases filled with Ethan's face. The ranch, the hope he couldn't let go of. One evening, he showed Ethan a painting, a portrait of him by the creek, his eyes alive with light. Ethan stared at it, his breath catching. "Is that how you see me?" he asked. "It's who you are," Jamie said. "To me." Ethan's hand found his, their fingers intertwining, and for the first time, Ethan didn't pull away. They stood there, the night wrapping around them, and Jamie knew they were close to something unbreakable. The ranch was a battlefield now, not of fists, but of choices. Ray's decision to sell loomed like a storm cloud, and Jamie felt the weight of every day left. He and Ethan worked side by side, their connection growing stronger, yet fragile, like a rope frayed but not yet broken. Jamie knew time was running out, not just for the ranch, but for them. One morning, Jamie presented Ray with a plan. He'd found a buyer for a small parcel of land, not enough to lose the heart of the ranch, but enough to pay off the debts and keep it running. Ray's eyes lit up, a spark of hope in his tired face. "You're a miracle, kid," he said. "But Ethan needs to agree." Jamie found Ethan in the horse corral, his hands gentle as he brushed a mare. "I have a way to save the ranch," Jamie said, laying out the plan. Ethan listened, his face unreadable, then nodded. "Do it," he said. "But it's not just about the land. It's about what we're fighting for." Jamie's heart skipped. "What are we fighting for, Ethan?" Ethan looked at him, his eyes steady. "Us," he said simply. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning, and Jamie felt the world shift. That night, a fire broke out in the east pasture, a spark from a lightning strike, fanned by the wind. Jamie and Ethan raced to contain it, their shouts lost in the roar of flames. They worked as a team, digging trenches, hauling water, their bodies moving as one. When the fire was out, they collapsed in the grass, soaked in sweat and soot, their chests heaving. Ethan turned to Jamie, his face lit by the dying embers. "You didn't have to stay," he said. "But you did." Jamie reached for his hand, their fingers locking. "I told you. I'm not leaving." Ethan's eyes searched his, and then, slowly, he leaned in. Their lips met, tentative at first, then fierce, a kiss born of months of longing and fear. It was fire and home, raw and tender, and Jamie felt every wall between them crumble. When they pulled apart, Ethan's forehead rested against his, their breaths mingling. "I'm scared," Ethan whispered. "But I want this. I want you." Jamie smiled, his heart full. "I'm here," he said. "We'll figure it out together." The next day, they finalized the land sale, saving the ranch. Ray watched them, a knowing smile on his face. "You too," he said, shaking his head. "You're going to be all right." Months later, the ranch was thriving again, the fields green, the herd strong. Jamie stayed, his art now a part of the ranch's story, his paintings hanging in the house. Ethan was different, lighter, his smiles more frequent, his touches bold. They built a life together, not without struggles, but with a love that grew stronger each day. One evening, under the same stars where they'd first opened their hearts, Ethan took Jamie's hand. "I was wrong," he said. "You were worth staying for. And I'm never pushing you away again." Jamie kissed him, the Montana sky stretching endless above them, and knew they'd found their home, not just in the ranch, but in each other. Their love, hard-won and fiercely kept, was a testament to the courage it took to be true, to heal, and to begin again.